Hello, everybody, and it is time to tackle UFC 298. Alexander Volkanovski taking on Ilia Topuria for the featherweight title of the world, or at least of the UFC, which realistically is of the world. And let's get through the usual disclaimer. I am going to give a boatload of betting advice here. I'm going to talk about betting odds. I'm going to talk about who's going to win, and I may even talk about who I'm betting on. I would like everyone to remember, keep this very much in the front of your mind, that you should not bet what you cannot lose on MMA. Because it is one of the most chaotic and unpredictable sports in the world. The light gloves, the ability to get a knockout, the ability for a fight to change in a minute. Because like any other sport you can think of, that's not really on the table. In boxing, there's a standing 8 count. In football, baseball, basketball, there's a whole game to be played. MMA is the sport of most unpredictability. Anyways, with that in mind, let's get to the fights. So overall thoughts on this card, just real quick. It's pretty good. I like the main card. Volkanovski Topuria is obviously very, very worth a main event. Whitaker versus Paulo Costa. It's a bit of a weird co-main event, but like it's still an interesting fight. Ian Garry, Jeff Neal, interesting fight. Merab Dvalishvili, Henry Cejudo, interesting fight, very important fight. Anthony Hernandez, Roman Kopylov, fine for a main card opener. And then in the feature prelim spot, you have Amanda Lemos versus Mackenzie Dern. That's solid. That top 6 fights right there. The bottom 6, a little bit less excited for. You've got a heavyweight fight that is not great. You have a 205 fight that is not great. You have Josh Quinlan versus Danny Barlow, which could be really, really good, actually. Could be. But I have concerns because they're both kind of can crushers. And then Val Woodburn versus Oban Elliott. That's fine. Andrea Lee and Miranda Maverick is pretty okay. Rinya Nakamura is a great prospect and a very exciting fighter. I'm looking forward to see what he does. But Carlos Vera is a not UFC caliber fighter, and obviously you can see it with the betting odds. I'll spoil this one for you. Nakamura is in the 4 figures of favorites, so there you go. That's that kind of tells you all you need to know about that fight. But let's kick off here. Alexander Volkanovski versus Ilia Topuria. I am probably going to be the guy that misses Alexander Volkanovski's fall off. That is just the raw truth of the matter, is that he is one of the most complete fighters, one of the absolute GOATs, technically speaking, of this sport. He is a guy who can wrestle at a high level. He can grapple at a high level. He can come up with incredibly adaptive game plans as a striker. It's been remarkable because as a 5'6" guy, I always thought that when he came in, this guy is going to be a forward go-getter. He's going to have to dominate people. He's going to have to crush them against the cage, whatever. Not the case. Man has figured out how to outstrike the likes of Max Holloway, the likes of Jose Aldo in incredibly effective fashions. And I just won't. I'll fully say that I won't see it coming. Even though he's 35 years old, which is officially the old point for elite MMA, even though he did get knocked out by Islam Makhachev, which, doesn't even really suggest much about his chin, though. It was up a weight class, and it was a heck of a head kick. I think it would finish anybody, really, prime chin or not. And there's some depression things going on with him, which is obviously concerning. But I haven't seen him decline as a fighter. Now, he's lost to Islam Makhachev twice. He's been knocked out by Islam Makhachev. That would imply falling apart, or degradation. But his very dominant performance against Yair Rodriguez is in the middle there. The fact that the first fight with Islam Makhachev was fantastic. Some people even thought he won. I think on some of the rewatches, I've actually agreed. But I think I came down at the end, being Makhachev's win. But with Ilia Topuria, very impressive fighter. People are incredibly impressed with this man. And I am incredibly impressed with this man. He's a hard hitter. He's got a grappling background that he has but he has built himself into like this power punching, shoulder rolling boxer. Amazing physicality, phenomenal fighter. The defense is way better than most people in this division in MMA. But, and this is the big but, he's beaten Josh Emmett, Bryce Mitchell, Ryan Hall. Those are his 3 biggest victories. Now, the fact that he doesn't have bigger victories doesn't mean that he can't beat Alexander Volkanovski. But it means that I'm having a hard time seeing it. Because all of his wins are highlighted by either being way more physical specimen than his opponents, like Ryan Hall or Bryce Mitchell, or Josh Emmett, who maybe has something approaching par physicality, par firepower, but has a very simplistic game. A very easy to game playing game. A game that isn't layered, isn't nuanced, isn't complex, isn't going to give you a ton of different looks. It's very one size fits all. I am a power punching guy who will do a little bit of swing and cling. Where like I'll swing in, I'll turn it into a shot, I'll turn it into a clinch, into a clinch. And it's very, very simple for Topuria to prepare for that because he has the athleticism. Like Emmett's basically been a physical test his entire career. When he fights like really, really good athletes, he loses. And that is Topuria's biggest win. Again, it doesn't mean that Topuria cannot win this fight. It does not mean that in any way. I would not be surprised. I would probably be ecstatic because like Ilia Topuria is amazing, and like the whole Georgian MMA revolution is very, very cool. But I'm having a real hard time. Seeing it in my head. Seeing Volkanovski not come up with solid solutions to hitting Topuria. Not having solid ability to mix in wrestling with his striking. Not being able to take his like very, very good low kick game and turn it into an attritive weapon that breaks down Topuria over the course of the fight and gets the job done. That's what I'm picking. Volkanovski by decision. I'm not saying Topuria will have moments. He will have danger. I suspect he'll even hurt Volkanovski at some point. Like legitimately hurt him with something very, very big at some point. Maybe even end up on top of him, get some stuff done. There's going to be like one round in there where Topuria looks like an absolute world killer. But I think Volkanovski takes the rest. Again, I don't know, 35 years old, that tends to be, you can look at the stats of 35-year-old fighters in title fights. It's not great. But Volkanovski is an incredible physical specimen. I think he still got it. Volkanovski is the minus 120 to minus 130 favorite. Topuria plus 100 to plus 110. It's tight. It's close. If you've got a really good feeling about Topuria, that's a bet you could definitely look at. If you got a really good feeling about Volkanovski, that's also a bet you could look at. So that's kind of perfect for a main event, actually. It's got action both ways. It's got a line that can be played either way, shape, or form, and it makes total sense. Robert Whittaker, Paulo Costa. This fight is kind of in the same mold as the main event in the sense that I come into this fight with like Robert Whittaker being a guy representing a type of guy that Costa's never beaten. Like full on never beaten. Costa's a weird one in the sense that he was coming up and he was looking very, very impressive and people were very, very hyped. And I was very, very hyped after he beat Yoel Romero. I'm like, holy crap. Paulo Costa might be for real. And then the last 3 fights happened where he got completely clowned by Israel Adesanya, outworked and outgunned by Marvin Vettori. Someone's stomping around upstairs. My apologies if it's being caught on the mic. And then having a bizarrely competitive war with a 40-something-year-old Luke Rockhold. Like, these are all good fighters, don't get me wrong. Izzy Adesanya is probably the second best middleweight of all time, realistically speaking. Probably. I put him behind, like, I got Anderson Silva 1, and then number 2, probably Izzy. I know people are going to be like Pereira or Sean Strickland, but their resumes are actually pretty thin. Rich Franklin would be an option, actually. Now that I think about it. Dan Henderson, option. Both of those are options. But and Vettori, just a really, really good, solid, well-rounded fighter. And Rockhold, former champion at one point in the world, best middleweight in the world, but like in his 40s. And like I can't help but thinking that Costa's just a fundamentally dumb, silly fighter. And it probably doesn't help that his social media presence is very, very, very silly, very, very cringe. We're going to talk about this with Henry Cejudo later as well. But it's just kind of a power game. It's just kind of I'm going to bully you. And if you don't have a response for that, because you don't have the physicality, or you're like Yoel Romero, a guy who, let's be honest, kind of is usually himself a bit of a bully / opportunistic finisher, I'll win. And the question is, of course, Whitaker did kind of get bullied by DDP. That's Whitaker's last fight. It's not a good one. But, and Whitaker, well, being 33, and that's not particularly old for even MMA, man has been in some wars. Those fights with Yoel Romero in particular probably took years off his life. But I kind of have to give into my Bobby Knuckles fandom here, my Robert Whitaker fandom, to be like, Robert Whitaker is a good fighter. He's a phenomenal fighter. He used to be the champion. He used to be the best middleweight in the world. He has a diverse, well-rounded skill set. He is a guy who does generally come up with a solid game plan for dealing with just about anybody. He's a guy who neutralized Marvin Vettori, Jared Cannonier pretty effectively. He's a guy who neutralized Darren Till, who isn't great, but hey, it's on there. He came up with some solutions for Izzy Adesanya, even though he could not get the W. Paulo Costa is just, he's not a strong enough puzzle. I mean, he's strong enough physically. He has amazing physical talents. Don't get me wrong, amazing physical talents and everything. But yeah, it's hard to see it. Obviously, I can picture in my head, Paulo Costa comes out there, he's throwing heavy shots, boom, 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 knocks out Whitaker, hurts him really badly, pounds him out, takes his back, submits him, something like that. There's obviously in my brain, I can conceive of how a Costa win looks. But at the same time, I honestly can't conceive him winning in any other way. It requires that dynamic moment, that kind of like what I was giving Topuria against Volkanovski, where there's going to be probably a moment where Ilia Topuria looks like a world beater. Probably going to be a moment for Paulo Costa too. Probably is. But then there's a lot of him just getting his butt kicked, getting outmaneuvered, getting beaten on footwork, getting beaten on variety of strikes, getting his body works, getting his legs work, because he's a bit of a headhunter, which this card is loaded with, by the way. I've got to go with Whitaker by decision. I have to go with Whitaker by decision. He's minus 250 to minus 265 favorite, so that's not a hot pick. Costa plus 185 to plus 205. Jeff Neal, Ian Garry. I am fine with this fight, I think is what it comes down to. Because, it's a ranked fight for Ian Garry. It's a sensical upgrade from having beaten Neil Magny. And he beat Daniel Rodriguez, didn't he? Am I thinking of someone else? Yeah, he knocked out Daniel Rodriguez with the head kick to ground strikes that he called. Kenan Song, Gabe Green, Darian Weeks, Jordan Williams, and then of course Neil Magny most recently. Yeah, so it's an appropriate step up. It's a ranked fighter. It goes to that direction. It all fits. But at the same time, I kind of find myself going, what is it that Jeff Neal asks of Ian Garry that we don't really have an answer for? Because Jeff Neal is fundamentally a very good, dangerous mid-range striker. That is his game. That is his A game. That is his bread and butter. That is the thing that has defined pretty much every win that he has, at least in the UFC. And, he does have, I think he actually is stated to have a reach advantage here, which, 75 inches at 5'11". Long arms. But, he doesn't really use it. And we've seen him outmaneuvered in the past by Wonderboy Thompson, by Neil Magny, and even to a certain degree by Kevin Holland, by guys who just have big, long frames and a willingness and a comfort and an ability to fight at range. And Ian Garry absolutely has that. 6'3", 74-inch reach, Very, very, very good range striker. Good footwork. Keeps the range. Largely just kind of dominated, for example, Daniel Rodriguez. And I feel like, don't get me wrong, Jeff Neal is a better fighter than Daniel Rodriguez. Any Jeff Neal fans, don't come for me on this matter. He is a better version of that fight. But he is a version of that fight. That's the problem. He is, in fact, a version of that exact fight. And it's one we've seen Ian Garry do. Like, I'm sorry, that's kind of what it just comes down to for me, honestly. And I foresee Ian Garry landing some good counters, keeping the range, utilizing kicks to keep distance, and Jeff Neal being kind of predictable. He's very much a headhunter. He's very much a kind of a one-handed fighter a lot of the time. Like he'll devolve to like even forgetting that he has another hand. And if you look at his wins, they're all guys who will engage with him at a medium range kind of war type scenario. A Vicente Luque, Santiago Ponzinibbio, Mike Perry, Nico Price, not so much Bilal Muhammad, but like kind of Bilal Muhammad. Like Bilal Muhammad actually, does have like a pretty good complex range game for a guy who's not very tall, not very reach. But like back in 2019, it was still very much a takedown game, and he was going to come inside. Frank Camacho, same. Brian Camozzi, same. Then we're back into like pre-UFC stuff. Like the three guys who could engage him at range effectively all beat him. Magny, Wonder Boy, Shavkat Rakhmonov. And it's not that Ian Garry is any of those guys. He is not any of those guys. He doesn't have the deep skill well of Wonder Boy. He doesn't have the physicality of Shavkat Rakhmonov. He doesn't have the life-sucking clinch game of Neil Magny. But the dynamic of the fight is very, very similar to those guys and not particularly similar to the Luques of the world. So I got to go with Ian Garry to win a unanimous decision here. He is the favorite, minus 222 to minus 250. Neil is the underdog at plus 165 to plus 190. You can make that wider. Merab Dvalishvili versus Henry Cejudo. In their prime for prime, I would pick Cejudo unquestionably. He is the more accomplished wrestler, the better boxer, has more of a functioning kicking game than Merab Dvalishvili does. He could be the Storm's End in Game of Thrones to the waves and the storm that is Merab Dvalishvili's constant swarm of takedown attempts and record-setting pace. The problem is I don't know if that guy exists. Cejudo is 37 years old. We were talking about 35 being old. 37 is old. We have seen him fight once in 3 years. He lost to Aljamain Sterling, who is a training partner of Merab Dvalishvili. You would think that there is a certain level of connection there. I think Merab is training with Syndicate MMA now these days, though. One moment here. I should have made note of this. But I think Merab is still training with Longo and company. Yeah, it still has him listed that everywhere, so I don't know. I know there's been some stuff with him being at Syndicate and stuff, but I think Longo's still very much involved. So like the things that work for Aljamain Sterling is something that they're going to have as a coaching resource. But I am having a really hard time picturing it because Merab has been neutralized pretty effectively as a wrestler by people. Like Peter Yan did it. He just couldn't do anything else. Jose Aldo did it. He just couldn't do anything else. Even like Ricky Simone had some success, realistically speaking. And that's kind of the thing is like you're up against an Olympic champion. And I know it's cringe. The Triple C stuff with Henry Cejudo. It's insanely cringe. I do not like it. I do not like the whole firing your coach for as a bit and then being like, gotcha. Yeah, congratulations, you got us with something just really stupid. But I kind of got to go with Cejudo. Like, it's in my brain that, like, Cejudo will outstrike him. Cejudo will be able to stand up to the wrestling threat, to the pace. That he does have the athletic ability, the wrestling ability, the strength, the raw physicality to get this done. And to still land solid boxing shots that are more powerful than what Merab's going to be throwing back. I'm hoping to be wrong. I'm legitimately hoping to be wrong because, number one, I don't need more Henry Cejudo fight promotion for a title fight. I don't need it. My heart can't take that. My soul cannot take that. It dies a little bit inside. But I am going to take him to win here by decision. He is the underdog at plus 158 to plus 180. Dvalishvili is minus 200 to minus 230. I'll probably put a little bet on Henry. That's the first betting line that I've been like drawn to of the 4 fights I've talked about. And or are we at 5 fights? No, we're on 4 fights. And then fight number 5, the opener for the undercard, Anthony Hernandez, Roman Kopylov. I like both of these guys a lot. I really do. I find Roman Kopylov's whole Russian Chase Hooper look to be hilarious, for one thing. I find the fluffy nickname to be hilarious for another thing. Big fans. Big fans of both guys. At the end of the day, it's a classic matchup. You have Kopylov, who is the boxer, the striker, he has other things. Don't get me wrong. He can grapple, he can wrestle. I'm not saying he's a one-trick pony. I'm not saying he's one-dimensional. But like at the end of the day, the fights that Kopylov wins look like ones that are dominated by boxing exchanges in the pocket. That is what he wants to do long-term. Hernandez is the wrestler. Again, can do other things. Can strike. Can grapple. Very good scrambler. But like what he wants to do is pressure you, enter into the pocket, bring the fight into a close range exchange, get takedowns, build on that because he has phenomenal cardio and toughness, phenomenal cardio and durability. The tenacity, what is the word? Constitution. There you go. That is the word I'm looking for. Of Anthony Hernandez is amazing. And Kopylov is a guy who's learning to sit down on his strikes and throw big punches. Don't get me wrong. And he's beaten guys who kind of have a little bit of Anthony Hernandez's game. Josh Fremd, Puna Soriano come to mind. Knocked them both out, but they're very, very different. Josh Fremd is... Try to think of a nice way to say this. And I you know what? I'm going to come out and say it. Josh Fremd is not good. There you go. Not good. Puna Soriano, very, very unstructured in a way that Anthony Hernandez just isn't. Hernandez has a comprehensive idea of the pressure game, where Soriano is kind of like this free-flowing, this is the fight that we're having. I'm losing it. Okay, maybe I need to change something else, and I've got the skills to do it, but I don't have really an idea of how to implement it kind of deal. And that's just not Hernandez. So I'm going to take Hernandez to be able to pressure, to be able to get to the clinch, to be able to get to takedowns, to be able to get this fight to the ground, to be able to scramble, to be able to find a dominant position at some point and apply a submission hold that Kopylov has to tap out to. Because, I mean, he did get submitted by Carl Roberson, and there was another one, wasn't there? Kopylov's other UFC loss, I think, was also by submission. No, it was a unanimous decision against Albert Duraev. But, like, yeah, Duraev kind of did what Hernandez wants to do, and he did it. And then Robertson also had the submission. Now, don't get me wrong, Kopylov, much better. Much more dangerous as a striker. He's really sitting down on things, connecting with power, doing his thing. But I don't think he's addressed the fundamental stylistic issue that this fight presents. He's also coming in on short notice. So there is that as well. And to be honest, the fact that Hernandez kind of approaches everyone fairly similar means I'm not realistically all that worried that like the change of opponent from Ikram Aliskerov is really going to be, because I think Aliskerov probably was a fight that he would lose, but now he's got a fight that he probably can win. There you go. Anyways, moving on down the card to Mackenzie Dern and Amanda Lemos. This is another fight that was supposed to be something else. It was supposed to be Lemos versus Tatiana Suarez, which would have been a more interesting fight just because I want to see Suarez actually be healthy, get down there and win. Like I want to see that occur. There's always a bit of a thing with Dern because, I mean, if you watch the Angela Hill fight, you're like, man, Dern is a monster. But then you realize that's the only time that that's come together. I'm going to be nice. She is probably the best grappler in women's MMA. Like, phenomenal. The jiu-jitsu game she has is fantastic. It's getting there that is the problem because her striking game every so often has like one element in a fight that actually looks like, this is clicking. And then it's gone the next fight. Something else has replaced it, but that element is gone. There's no consistency in what's working with her game. And there's no reliable takedown game to her aside from I am big and strong. Because she is massive for the weight class. Like just straight up, massive strawweight. Lemos, not as massive, but probably just as strong. Like phenomenally strong fighter. Good counter game. Hits really, really hard. Dern is incredibly tough. But yeah, as much as we saw Lemos have like issues getting submitted by Jessica Andrade, and also the hallmark of her loss to Weili Zhang was an inability to stop Zhang from being able to grapple with her. Those are just different beasts. They are different physical specimens. And frankly, they are probably more technical takedown artists, which with Andrade is saying something because Andrade's just never been anyone's idea of a technician. Lemos is the more reliable striker. She's pretty good under pressure, actually. So, like, the things that Dern was able to do to Angela Hill probably won't work here. Lemos probably will just be like, okay, you want to keep coming at me face first? I will just hit you. I will just sit down on a strike and hit you really, really hard. And yeah, your durability will probably allow you to absorb that and everything. We'll probably go 15 minutes, but I'm the one that's going to win. I'm the one that's going to have the big moments. I'm the one that is going to hurt you, not the other way around. Amanda Lemos, by decision, she's the favorite, minus 130 to minus 148. Dern, plus 110 to plus 116. I'm actually a little surprised by that. I was hoping I could get Lemos at underdog odds. Marcos Rogério de Lima, Justin Tafa is a fight that I'm not going to waste your time breaking down all that much. It's two big, meaty men, and they're going to do big, meaty men things. They're going to hit each other really, really hard. They're going to probably get very, very tired, and I really hope we get a KO relatively early. I'm going to go with de Lima. He's the more structured striker, the better one. He's the better grappler of the two, the more likely to actually have success on the ground of the two, because he actually has a pretty good top game. And Tafa just, I don't know. Tafa just beats dudes that he just blows out of the water. Like that's the hallmark of his like entire career is I go out there and you die. Whether it's Austin Lane, Parker Porter, Harry Hunsucker, it's all kind of the same in that regard. When he fights people who either have the physicality or just the durability to take a shot, he loses. Jared Vanderrohe, Carlos Felipe, Jorge De Castro. The only kind of exception, I guess, is he does have a win over Juan Adams. But yeah, I absolutely have to go with Marcos Rogério de Lima. He is the favorite, minus 140 to minus 156. Tafa is plus 115 to plus 130. I basically already broke down Rinya Nakamura versus Carlos Vera, and the betting odds do it for me. Minus 1,200 to minus 1,400 on Nakamura. Vera plus 680 to plus 775. The only thing I'll give Vera is he'll probably see the final bell because he is really durable. But my guy is kind of a choke artist in a good way, as in he has like a good guillotine, good rear naked choke when he get it, but he's a pretty limited striker. He's 36 years old. Nakamura is a physical phenom with a great wrestling background who has aggressive and sloppy striking. It'll hurt him at some point. Don't get me wrong. Like there is a fight, maybe 2-3 fights down the road where Nakamura gets in there with somebody who hurts him. And maybe Nakamura still wins. Maybe the insanity keeps him through it and allows him to still win that fight. But there's going to be a fight where he just gets hurt because it is stupid aggression. But it's not Vera. Vera's not a particularly hard hitter. He's not a particularly deft striker. He's not great on the counter by any means. He kind of just got bullied around by Brad Katona on The Ultimate Fighter. It's a fight that doesn't ask questions, I guess, in a nutshell. That's what it comes down to. Rinya Nakamura decision, but like very, very, very one-sided decision. Vera, if I didn't say the odds, was plus 680 to plus 775. Minyang Zhang, might have got that wrong. Bredson Hibero. Again, this is a fight that's just very bad. It is not UFC caliber. These guys have been finished 9 times in their collective careers, 5 knockouts, 4 submissions, including Zhang getting knocked out by Askar Mozarov, the greatest fraud fighter in recent memory in the UFC. They're not good. They're not particularly athletic. They win fights by being big. Like, you seriously look at all of their fights. They look a weight class bigger than everyone that they beat. I'm just going to pick the underdog because they've got Hibero at minus 105 to plus 110. They've got Zhang at minus 115 to minus 126, I guess, because he won the road to the UFC. But yeah, this is a terrible trash fire of a fight. It might be fun. It might be fun. We get those sloppy fun fights. Petrino versus the Pleasure Man comes to mind, Anton Turkalj, like where it's like this is like morbidly fascinating, but it's not good. That's the upside for this fight, I guess. I'll go with Ribeiro just to have an underdog pick. Josh Quinlan versus Danny Barlow. Okay, this one I'm actually interested in. I like it. I like it. I find both of these guys very limited, but also like very promising. Like they're very good athletes. If Josh Quinlan was a little bit younger than 31 years old, I'd be actually pretty excited. I'm going to largely forgive Quinlan for losing to Trey Waters. Trey Waters is an insanely large man, but like both of these guys are can crushers. Does that mean that they can't be better than can crushers? No, but they are can crushers. Their losses or their wins are almost all, with one exception, which we're going to get to, are almost all them going out there and being powerful physical forces that just obliterate their opponents. That is what they do. And there's like little things additional to that with Quinlan. He's got a decent takedown game on top of that. He's actually pretty good back take artist. And he's a guy who says, "Oh, rear naked choke, don't mind if I do." Is kind of his thing. And with Barlow, it's kind of the same thing without the rear naked choke and the takedown thing. There is one fight that I think is very, very informative, and it's a 2022 decision victory for Barlow against a guy named Dustin DePuma. It's a fight where DePuma showed basically just toughness. I wouldn't even say like technical striking or anything, but like just toughness to bring Barlow to the mat, get him down, and control him. And it was good for Barlow in the sense that he didn't panic. He showed calmness. He got back up. He fought through it. And having a guy who he couldn't just crush didn't break his confidence. Those are all excellent signs. It's also a sign that a guy who probably should be fighting at 155, never fought after that, was 1-0 coming into that, wasn't a particularly good wrestler, was in fact able to take you down and control you. And Quinlan, not a great wrestler by any means, but a capable wrestler and an athlete with a good back take game and a history of finding rear naked chokes and landing pretty decent ground pound. I have to go with Quinlan. That fight is like, it actually is like inspiring me to think that like there is something to Barlow, that with the right coaching, the right adaptations, the right additions, he'll actually be very, very good. Because he's a 6'2", 80-inch athletic welterweight. There is a ton to build on there. And he does have some of the mental things that you look for and that sometimes are sometimes are absent. There's also examples against Raheem Forrest and against Jarius Gill where like things go a little wrong for him and it doesn't freak him out. I like that. Fighting at a law school MMA. Who else is out of this gym? Anyone I know? Austin Lyons, okay. I do know who that is. Not very good, but I do know who he is. I do like the left-handed god nickname. I do. It's corny, but I like it. It's kind of about it. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Quinlan by submission. Frankly, it's one of those things that like long term, that fight with DePuma actually gives me more hope for him to develop into something. But it shows me gaps that I need to see closed before I think someone like Quinlan, with the athleticism of Quinlan, can't capitalize on. Barlow is the favorite at -192 to -205. That's too much. Like, even if you haven't seen the DePuma fight, even if you haven't, to be clear, and you're like really downgrading Quinlan for the loss to Trey Waters, which I could understand. I think that's too wide. I just think that's too wide whenever you get a can crusher coming to the UFC. Quinlan is +150 to +170. That'll be my big bet of the card. Val Woodburn versus Oban Elliott. I think it's pronounced Oban. I might be wrong. Anyways, 170-pound fight. Good to see Val Woodburn going to 175 or 170 because his 5'8" frame just really didn't suit 185 and 205, which he was doing for reasons that I don't fully understand. Anyways, still. Woodburn is a pretty simple guy to break down. He's an incredibly powerful guy. Loves throwing power hooks. He very much is a Jeremiah Wells with like less refinement and less variety. He's super powerful, explosive, with surprisingly decent cardio, but like he is going to just try to take your head off. Which is a concern for Elliott because he's been finished by punches twice by lesser hitters. Like I like Mikkel Figlak. I really do. I think he's a good fighter. UFC, let's get him back in the cage, please. But he's a lightweight. He knocked out Oban Elliott. And I've seen Oban Elliott get hurt by like some other guys who I don't really know, but they don't come off as big hitters. They don't have that. But for all that negativity, Elliott is a pretty good fighter. He's the better fighter, I think. He is at a reach disadvantage with Woodburn. Surprisingly enough, Woodburn 74 inches to Oban 72, despite the fact that Woodburn is 5'8", and Elliott is 6 feet tall. Elliott's much better at fighting from long range. Like, there's more complexity to him. There's more accuracy, more variety, more combinations. He's a pretty good grappler too, actually. I think if the grappling door is open for him, he'll make use of it. That being said, I have a hard time imagining Woodburn get taken down. Like, I've seen it. He got taken down. I'm pretty sure he got taken down in that fight against Bo Nickel. I didn't go watch it because I just thought it was... No, I think he got knocked out. Okay, I need to know now. Did he get knocked out, or did he get taken down by Bo Nickel? Was there a takedown in that fight that I am not? There was none. Okay, yeah. So not even taken down by Bo Nickel. Granted, Bo Nickel didn't try, but like, just do your look him up. Look up a picture. Look up his Tapology. Like, look up the picture of him. You don't look at that man and be like, you know what I need to do? You know what I need to do? I need to shoot in there and take him down. I need to do something. I don't know. I don't know if that's really an option that crosses your mind. I don't know. It's maybe there. I'm gonna go with Elliott by decision. I'm gonna go with the guy who I think has a longer trajectory, not just because he's 4 years younger, but because I think there's actually a well put together game there versus just insane freak physicality. And I'll go with Elliott by decision, but he is way too big of a favorite. Way too big. Minus 270 to minus 335. Come on, guys. Don't do this to me. I don't know what it is. Fighters from the UK and Elliott's from Wales always end up with like really heavy hype trains. And don't get me wrong, comes from Jack Shore's gym, or Jack Shore's dad's gym, I should say, which, you know, has produced some solid stuff and whatever. But I don't know. I don't have that level of confidence in him not to just get his head taken off by Woodburn. That's a very viable underdog pick. Woodburn plus 210 to plus 250. Andrea KGB Lee versus Miranda Maverick. It's interesting because like both of these girls have like lost this fight to a certain degree. Like Andrea Lee lost to Macy Barber, who's kind of very similar to Miranda Maverick in the sense that like really physically talented fighter, not the most complex or nuanced game, kind of a bully, kind of shorter than her, and was able to go to a split decision, but like I thought pretty clearly lost. And, you know, there are other examples of this fight with Vivi Araujo, for example, where she just faces someone who's a better athlete, or even Natalia Silva. Very different style than Miranda Maverick. Very, very different, but similar in the sense of an overwhelming physicality, which can happen. And, of course, with Maverick, she lost to Jasmine Jasudavicius, who's a tall, rangier fighter with a relatively well-rounded game while being foot slow. And really actually had very, very poor answers for that. It's a fight that I picked Maverick pretty confidently in, and she couldn't deliver it. So I'm kind of leaning towards Lee. Let me see if I can convince myself otherwise here. Obviously, all the ingredients for Lee to lose this fight are there. She's a worse athlete than Miranda Maverick. She's also a fighter who, despite having the frame to do it, doesn't really fight at long range all that well. Despite having a 4-inch reach advantage and a 3-inch height advantage, she does kind of welcome the clinch. She's a all-in or all-out fighter. Like she can fight at range, like range boxing, like far jab range, stabbing jab range, for combination stuff, for kicks as well. But she doesn't really fight. She does a lot of her best work in the clinch. And if you end up in the clinch with Maverick, you're in there with a ball of muscle that can probably put you on the mat, similar to how Vivi Araujo did to Andrea Lee. But I don't think I'm convincing myself here. I did myself probably no favors by watching Jasmine Jasudavicius versus Miranda Maverick last of my fight prep here. That admittedly not even most recent performance by Maverick is the one that is in my brain. I'm just pulling up the stats for it. On paper, it's not that bad of a fight. She's only landed 67 to 63 in significant strikes, but overall it was 118 to 68. She was pushing for takedowns and wasn't able to get them. I'm going to go with the fool me once, shame on me. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And I'm going to pick Andrea Lee. We saw Maverick versus Jasudavicius. That's a really similar dynamic. And we saw her lose it. I'll go with Lee by decision. Another underdog I can probably get behind because she's plus 145 to plus 160. Maverick is minus 180 to minus 196. I'll go with Lee. It's not a bad card. Not fantastic, but it's not the stacked pay-per-view cards of old, I guess. is what it comes down to. And I think really what is ruining it a little bit for me is we do have a very relevant heavyweight fight. Don't get me like DeLima versus Tafa is relevant to the division, but it's not very good. Not that it's not very good, but it's like it's good in a very specific way. And then you also have that Hibero versus Zhang fight, kind of filling very much that same void. And I think that's kind of what actually has me a little spoiled on it. Like it's probably part of why the milk of this card curdles a little bit. But I think it's gonna be a fun time. Let me know what you think over on social media or on the Discord. Check out the links down below. You can find my social media, my Discord, and my YouTube. Well, my Twitch and like gaming stuff. If you happen to be a bit of a nerd and you want to join the fight simulator, the Discord is also for you. I will talk to you guys after the fights. I'm not sure if I'm watching these ones live the whole way through. I tend to watch the main card live all the time, but the undercard tends to be missed by sim racing commitments. We'll see. Anyways, hope you have a good day. And, be careful with your betting, but there is money to be made here, potentially.